Okay, so I'm doing a video on some of the statements that are made in here, very briefly covering what some of the words mean, and also there's video footage to see if the words back up the actions in reality. So we're going to just start. He's going to say the word democracy, and then we're going to break it down and what those actual words mean versus to what most people have been trained into believing they mean. So here we go.
We are a proud liberal democracy.
All right, so we're a proud liberal democracy. Let's have a look at the meaning of democracy. Very few people have been taught this, yet it's universally discoverable. So if you're really interested in learning, you can actually verify these terms. So here we go. Okay, as they say, truth isn't what you want to hear. So it's just what is. Again, universally discoverable. You can find this anywhere you like. Democracy, what it is not. Suffrage. Suffrage just means voting. Leads to totalitarian, communist, fascist states. Yeah, it's going to be very confronting for the majority of people watching this who've never heard this before. Yet just have a look at the actions we're about to show you later. Referenda, it's not that either. So mass voting, that's not democracy. That's what you've been taught it means. Legislatorial voting by representatives, that's not democracy either. All suffrage does, which just means voting in an election, it creates consensus politics. If you don't know what that word consensus means, I suggest you look it up, or you can understand that that's just when everybody agrees without really thinking about what they're agreeing to. Now we're going to look at another definition of what actually democracy is and its origins. All right, so it comes from the Greek word demokratia, demos, it means the people. That's the Greek word, the people. Kratos, sovereignty, kratian, to rule. So it's derived from the Hellenic Athenian constitution, government by trial by jury. How many people actually know that's how the government worked back in Athenian times? That they were governed by the people through trials, jury trials, or trial by jury structure, where people govern themselves through the jury. That's the true nature of what democracy is that's been hidden from you. Because if we're going to suffer the consequences of government legislation, and all government is, very few people know this, is an administrative body of public servants, people who want to serve the public, come together to administrate the will of the people. So how else can we control them other than through a formalized structure? And that is through jury trials or trial by jury. Sovereignty of the individual citizen juror as the final arbiter of the law. So very few people know that's the actual defining principle of justice, that the individual juror is the final arbiter of what becomes and remains law. It's going to do a lot of people's heads in that. Now, what he says, right? He says the word democracy, but has he ever defined it like that? Of course he's not, because we're not running in that system. So he's not going to tell you. If he did, there'd be like an outright revolution. So there's no way he's going to do that. But if you really understand it, someone who's standing in service, it is their role to teach you what you don't know about how you can protect your rights, your individuated rights, right? That's the true nature of service. Now you think about your own life experience, whether that's ever been an experience you've had with anyone involved in government. Have a proper think about it. All right, I'm coming back with one more definition. So democracy, what it is, democracy is when people hold the power to annul government law, which is legislation, in trials run by juries of the people. That's all it means, real simple. Now, if you want to really think about it, right, if that's what we understood democracy to mean, would have all these lockdowns and all these measures about not being able to see your family, having to step away from each other, washing your hands, sanitizing, spraying, all the guards that came up in the supermarkets, the forced jabs, the whole thing. Would have the people ever agreed to that without, coming together and having a serious look at the evidence? Would have that ever happened? That's the first question you got to ask. Because would have we relied on the television, on government, if we were in charge of government? You've got to use your imagination there, guys, because I know it's very difficult for people to imagine that which they've never experienced. But that's what it's going to require for you to understand the power of what's here and why they've hidden it from you. So I hear people all the time telling me that they understand what law is and you should get a lawyer and, the judges know the law better. They don't even know how to define the word law. And then as soon as you ask them, they go into attack. So here it is. It's laid out for you guys. I've done the work for you. So now we're going to move on and look at more of that video, and then we're going to go into what police are. So I'm just going to play more of this. I will stop it partway through all the action the police take, and we'll go through more. So now you have an understanding, hopefully, if you're paying attention and open to learning new things, of what true democracy is. And if you understand what true democracy is, this will explain why you're seeing what you're seeing.
We are a proud liberal democracy. We believe in a world order that favours freedom and that supports the dignity and free expression of all people. We believe in human rights, in gender equality and the rule of law, and we back that up with how we pursue these things in our own country.
So, did you see all those things happening that he was saying? Or was the vision that you're seeing in opposition to what your understanding of human rights is, the rule of law? None of those politicians have ever defined what the rule of law means. And so that's the best part, right? Is they have a different definition of what you think it means. And if you don't understand, why don't you just think about your life experience of whether you've had the experience of actual justice, whether you've had the experience of equity, or have you had to fight for everything you've ever earned and then fight with others and be in competition, you know what I mean? Struggle to survive. Is that what you understand as an equitable system of justice that you've lived? Why would you have to pay to use a service like the courts, right? A service that we pay for through our taxes. Why would you have to pay to use that if it wasn't a business? Just ask yourselves that. If it wasn't a corporation making money and profit, why would that even be the case? If everyone who is here believes that taxes pay for every government service that they provide, then why do you have to pay for justice? How is that justice? Have a real think about that question. So a bit more footage.
In our own society and how we raise our own children. Australia was one of 8 countries only involved in the drafting of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and we continue to strengthen the international human rights system. And we will continue to raise our voice on important issues like the rights of women and girls.
So there you go. That's what it looks like to strengthen human rights. That's how we did it. Isn't Australia an amazing place? How many people are really going to want to look at that properly and examine it? The words are showing you something in opposition to what you're seeing. And until you see it with your own eyes while you're hearing it, you won't be able to understand what's really been happening and what you've consented to. So now we're going to take a look at the meaning of rights because he says it. And now we're actually going to go and define it and see how that lines up and which one seems more in alignment. What he said rights is, does it really match up with what you're seeing? And if it was truly rights that were being protected, would it look like that? So let's have a look, shall we? Okay, rights. There's no such thing as a right to prevent others from exercising a right, since rights are actions in the service and advancement of life. So how can someone grant themselves a right to stop someone else from doing that which is in the service of advancing not only their life, but other people's lives too? How is that possible, right? So you would have heard Dan Andrews say, this is not about your rights, this is about your safety. Well, that term, this is a way for you to shut off your understanding of your intuitive need to choose for yourself what you do with your body. This is a very good mind trick that's constructed to do that because everyone panics when they hear the word safety. So when you're in fear, you're not actually thinking logically and rationally. And that's why they use those terms. But if you don't listen to us, you're going to die. The claim over rights of another is called slavery and stems from a belief that there exists a chosen few born with a divine right to rule. Hence, the existence of self-appointed gods that create rights for others therefore have the power to revoke those rights. Think about what happened through the pandemic, guys. Was your rights being revoked? If we were running a lawful system of governance where we just had an administration that administrates that which we require to advance the quality of our life, that's all government was ever allowed to be, right? They were never allowed to infringe on our personal rights, ever. That was never an agreed to thing, right? And the only way to stop it is to have a way that judges it, right? Where we are in charge of whatever they put out. If we don't have that, then we have dictatorship. So I'm going to end it here and I'm going to come back with more and have to make a sequence of this. Otherwise, I'll be too long.